Hello and welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis, and this is the podcast where you'll hear from trailblazing women in sport. A big thanks to Barclays for supporting this series of The Game Changers, which features fearless women in football. My guest today is Arsenal and England legend Rachel Yankey. I started our conversation by asking Rachel about her earliest memories of football.
Earliest, I suppose, going down the park with my brother and his friends and my friends, and just joining in. There used to be, well, it isn't like it is today. I mean, we used to play like probably 20 aside. It's just very dangerous. So being, I don't even know how old I was, but just being very young and sort of going down and joining in games of football and kicking a ball around, and with probably a lot of people that were a lot older than me.
And boys and girls? A mixture of boys and girls, or mainly boys?
To be honest, they were probably all boys. When I was really young, it used to be my brother, his friends from school, maybe their sisters, so maybe boys and girls there. But then when I went down the park with the two boys that lived across the road from me, so probably about 8 or 9, we used to play. There's just hordes of people, teenagers, and we just sort of usually, like, most of my friends would have older brothers. My brother, he liked watching football, but probably wasn't as active in football when he got older. It's not cool to hang around with your little sister, is it? So I think I used to go down there with other people and join in with other people's older brothers. They just used to, I suppose, look after me, to protect and just let me play. We used to have great fun. I mean, we used to play football mostly, but I mean, there was odd times that we played cricket and stuff like that. So just join in, get involved, and it was good fun.
And where did you live? Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Brent, in Queen's Park. I lived just down the road from the park, so we used to go down there and just play loads of football. But also used to go, when I went to secondary school, I used to go to with a whole load of mates to Wilson Sports Centre, and we used to climb over the fences. Not sure what that's about. But jump the fences and play football until the security would see us, and then we'd all quickly grab the ball and run. That was good fun.
And how did your family feel? Were they supportive of your football when you were young?
I think so. I mean, I grew up with my mum and my brother. My mum used to take us like swimming and football, and both me and my brother used to run for Highgate Harriers.
Oh, right.
So he was quite good. He used to do like hurdles and stuff like that. I used to do the 800 metres.
I used to do the 800 too, yeah.
I think most people, if they looked at me how I play football, they wouldn't have imagined me doing the 800 metres. But I was quite good at it. And then I got moved to do the 1500. And I think that was the point where I went, I don't want to run anymore. So I think we used to do quite a lot of sport. And I think my mum just obviously knew me as a person, and just lots of people, especially in primary school, other parents sort of said, why'd you let her play football? And, you should concentrate on studies and education, and, football's not for girls. But I think, one, my mum knew if she told me, I'd do the exact opposite, just probably like most kids. But also she could see that there was a real, the passion to it. I don't think she ever thought, oh, you're doing this to make a career out of it, because I don't think I thought that. But you want your kids to be happy, don't you? So I think, she knew that playing football, me going down the park and playing football, I mean, there was a lot of worse things that I could be getting involved in. So that was, she knew I was down there.
Good, that's really good. And can you tell us, I guess, what you had to do to play in a boys' team? I know it's a story that's much told, but if you could tell that story.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up with the two boys that lived across the road, Michael and Lawrence. And they wanted to join a football team. And one of the parents at their school started making a football team because his son wanted to play football. There was no clubs really around where we lived. He wasn't a football coach, but he was, a keen football fan. So he decided to start up a football team in the South Kilburn estate. So Michael and Lawrence joined, and they asked me if I wanted to join. So I was like, yeah, wicked, get to play for a football team. And then we sort of realised that before going there, all the people at school, his school that were going to go, were all boys. So maybe it wasn't, right for a girl to go. I don't know how close this was, but basically they went to get a haircut one day, and I was with them. We were sitting in the barber's, and the barber sort of said, "Next customer," and looked at me. So I don't know, maybe a little bit of peer pressure from the barber, but yeah, I sat down and said, "Can I have the same haircut as my friend?" So I don't know how long it was at that point, but yeah, he cut my hair off. Same, I think it was probably about a grade 2 all over. So, yeah, my mum wasn't that impressed when I walked in. I did wear a hat for quite a long time. Yeah, I don't know. I just did it, and then I joined the football team. Or I went down to train with them, and Lawrence. I think it was Lawrence that came up with it to call me Ray. My initials spell out Ray, and then everyone called me Ray. And I just think that it's quite easy to fool people when they already think that football is for boys and football is played by boys. And if you can play, and the way I played, the way I moved, it was agile. It was, I could play really well. I was as good as any of the boys. So I don't think if people had said, "Oh, that's a girl," people would have gone, "Nah." Do you know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of convincing that needed. I had short hair. I think it was quite easy to convince people. I don't think a lot of people sort of questioned it. The manager knew. His name was Tony Chelsea. He knew that I was a girl. He spoke to my mum. Said my mum was like, "Yeah, if she wants to go, I'm quite happy with her joining." And then he just called me Ray, and everyone called me Ray. And yeah, I joined the team. The team used to play in a five-a-side league at Kingsbury High School, which Tony Chelsea used to pick us up in his. He was a painter and decorator, so he used to pick us up in his van and take us. It was just the most dangerous thing that I think of when I look at it. I don't know how many kids, 5 or 6 kids in the back of a white van, like load of paint, loads of just being thrown around.
But what an opportunity that he created for you. Like, you look back and think, if he hadn't done that ahead of your career.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, if he hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't have joined a football team, let alone a girls' football team. He done so much for me. And when I was playing in the boys' league, and obviously, I think we played in a cup final. And there was a boy on the other team that knew me and sort of said to the referee, that's a girl. Tony Chelsea told me, which I believed for years and years and years, that it was his mistake and he'd filled in my registration and I was too old. But he told me, because I got to see him again, because I hadn't seen him in so long. I got to see him again when I beat Peter Shilton's record. He came to that game and I met up with him, and he told me afterwards, he goes, "Oh, I actually just lied to you because I didn't want you to think it was your fault." Oh. So yeah, really nice, it's like, wow.
Yeah. Give him a big shout out. That's lovely, isn't it? And all those parents that are out there initiating sport for young people, so important.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've run a grassroots football team. It's so hard. And what he did for all of us, regardless to whether we went on to make it or to not, it was just, he gave us such a bond, such an experience to represent, what were we called? Marion Football Club, that's what we were called. But just the ownership of playing for that team, going out. He used to give me my kit before, and the other kids used to complain because they all thought I was a boy, so they didn't understand why. I used to get changed at home, and then when we'd go into the changing room, I'd just disappear, and like, you don't even recognise or think about it. So I'd just go to the toilet, or I'd be outside or whatever, or he'd come and speak to me. Everyone would get changed, and then I'd suddenly appear when it was time for a little pre-meeting. And when people would complain, he'd made up excuses for me. They were like, "Oh, can I take the kit home?" And they were like, "No." He was like, "No, Ray's got to do it because his mum works, and he needs to get changed quick because he can't." It just basically lie upon lie. But harmless ones. And fantastic man, because he didn't need to do any of that. And even when I was told that I couldn't play because the opposition team said that, they got a girl playing. The ref asked me to leave the pitch. He then, when they had their general meetings for the league, he said, it's not fair. I've got a girl that is playing. She's my best player. You're telling me that she can't play. Well, what do I do with her? Where does she go? And that's how I joined Mill Hill United, because Mill Hill United said, well, we have a girls team. Bring her down. Come to us. And Excellent. He said to me, his only regret is that he was a massive Chelsea fan. He goes, his only regret is that he didn't take me to Chelsea. Mill Hill was like more of a community club. We had some fantastic players. I was there up until I moved to Arsenal. So from about 10 to 16, I moved to Arsenal at 16. So yeah, a long time.
Were you on the YTS scheme, or you did work as well at Arsenal?
Yeah, so basically both were separate but went at the same time. So when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do and what I was going to be. And then I saw this youth training scheme that Arsenal ran. So you went college and you did the side of it where you learned how to work in a leisure centre and stuff like that. But then you also went out and you coached kids. They taught you how to teach kids and you went into schools. So yeah, I joined that scheme. But at the same time, I joined Arsenal Ladies. So they were two separate things. They just happened to be at the same time.
Excellent. And then through that time, you played in the UK and you also played in the US at different times in the seasons. How did that work during your career?
Well, we at that point were playing the Winter League in England, and America play the Summer League. So I just got offered an opportunity. So when we finished our league in, I don't know what it was, May or whatever it was, to go straight out to America and basically join in their league, play there until they finished pretty much August, and then come back and play in our league. So it was like football all year. When I first went to Montreal, so I joined Laval Dynamite, which is in Montreal. I just finished my Arsenal YTS. A friend of mine was going as well. She used to play for Millwall. It was more of just an adventure, a youngster going out to a different country, playing football. It was a fantastic opportunity. So I went there, and then obviously back then in women's football, your registration was to the league and for a season. Everybody always says I went on loan, but I can't. I mean, my registration to Arsenal had finished. My thoughts were to obviously sign back up. But when I was out there, I can't remember how old I was, 19 or 20. I got approached by Fulham. They were obviously, Mohamed Al Fayed had seen the '99 World Cup, wanted to make a professional team in line with the FA's idea to make a professional league in 3 years' time. He basically wanted a head start, and they'd asked me if I wanted to play for them. So I came back on an international camp, and Gary met up with me and spoke to me about it and offered me a contract. And I think at that point it was a really hard decision because, one, I loved playing for Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal supporter. It was, the best thing ever to play for Arsenal. But on the flip side of it, I'd finished my YTS. I had no job. I was at that point. I was actually signing on, and that's it's a crazy thing to do. When my mum told me you have to, because of paying stamp duty and whatever, you have to be looking for a job and stuff like that. So basically, I was unemployed, and someone's offered me an opportunity to be a professional footballer. I had to take it. It was still a hard decision, but it was like unbelievable dream to go and train every day, become a professional footballer. It was like, wow. I spoke with the England manager and said, will this harm me? Because Fulham were 2 leagues below Arsenal. So everybody's saying it's crazy, you can't do that.
They're 2 leagues below. I didn't realise that, yeah.
2 leagues below. So one, personal circumstances, you're thinking, well, you got to grow up, you've got to have a job, you've got to, earn money. So for that reason, but also the reason of an opportunity to become a professional footballer. Because at Arsenal, we were only training twice a week. I spoke with Hope Powell. She said I picked players on form. It wouldn't go against me, but obviously I had to be playing well. So, I took the risk and I made the move.
And had you been capped by then?
For England, yeah. I've made my debut for England when I was 17. So I was at Mill Hill United, and Mill Hill United had, although it's not a well-known team, but they had a lot of players that went on to play for England. Kim Jerry Silva, Natasha Daly, Sarah Reid, who played in goal. There was a lot of players there that actually went on to play at a high level international and went on to play for Arsenal and another high team. So Mill Hill United didn't want me to leave when I was 16. They said that I had the qualities of being a future captain, and they really didn't want me to go. And Arsenal, I spoke to Vic Akers, who'd obviously seen me and asked me to come down and join. But I also spoke to their reserve manager, who was basically tapping me up to play for the third team. Now, they were in the same league or lower than Mill Hill United. So it was like Mill Hill was saying, why would you even go there? So again, I suppose I took a bit of a leap of faith, because I just thought this is an opportunity. Natasha Daly, who played at Mill Hill, she'd had such a different story in going. She left Mill Hill just before me, but when she told me that she went to meet Vic Akers, again, we're both Arsenal fans. She went to one of the boxes at Highbury, sat down, had it was not wined and dined, but you know what I mean, signed a contract, had photos done. Well, I went into the mezzanine at Arsenal in the ball court and met with the fourth team manager, who told me that I'd play for them, and I still signed. So it was very different. I mean, that first season, I played once or twice for the reserves. Was sub for the first team, and then played a game we played Everton, and there was an England scout there, and obviously I did well, and that's how I got scouted.
And so just jumping back to Fulham, so what happened in the end with Fulham? It was almost a bit too early for where women's football was at the time.
Yeah, I suppose if you look from now, it was too early, but then if you do look at what Mohammed Al Fayed did and what the FA said, well, actually the FA are too late. Because Mohammed Al Fayed understood that the FA were going to make a professional league in 3 years' time. Like I said before, Fulham were in a 2 leagues below, so he wanted a head start, and he wanted to create this team he brought in a few international players, better quality players, added them to the team that he already had. We did our job. We weren't helped in any way in terms of anyone skipped us up leagues. We had to win those leagues, which we did. I mean, some of the games, we had to do a job, and I think that's what the mindset we got into, is that we were here, we have to get promoted, we have to win these games to get the points to get promoted. Because sometimes, I mean, we get off the bus and the other team, they were just like, this is so unfair. They'd reel off names that were coming off the bus, like international names like myself, Katie Chapman, Mary Phillip, and they were just like, how can we compete against them? And in a way, I agree, and it wasn't fair, but we had to do
process.
Yeah, we had to. So some of the score lines were huge, were in a way not enjoyable for the opposition, but not enjoyable for us. But we got promoted. We did our job. We got to the top league where Arsenal were playing, and then the FA didn't make a professional league. So in my eyes, yes, I think Fulham was too early, but then also they didn't stick to their what they said they were going to do. So women's football could be
much better,
a lot more progressed if that was the case. But then maybe there were valid reasons. I don't know what happens in boardrooms, or whether it was the right time. So it's not for me to say. I just know how we felt when we heard that Fulham was no longer going to continue. I don't think that there was, definitely not on my part, and I don't believe from the rest of the team, there was resentment to right. Mohammed Al Fayed. Obviously, there was disappointment because we'd had 3 fantastic years, and he'd gone from taking a team of individuals, put them together, made them. I think everyone bar one became an international player. So I think when we look at what we did, you take a group. There was a group of women. There wasn't too many arguments. There wasn't. Everybody got on. Everybody gelled together. You made all that work, and then we went on to win trebles. I think the sad part of it is that when it ended, a lot of people said, well, didn't necessarily blame Fulham, but then looked at women's football and said, I can't make a career out of this. I need to go and find a proper career and do a proper job. And a lot of people lost a lot of love for football. I know I definitely struggled. I really struggled at that time, because when you've been at the pinnacle, the highest place that you can be of women's football, you're a professional. To then, I stayed on at Fulham for another season, and I knew halfway through I had to leave. I had to go, because our standards of where we'd taken Fulham Football Club, the new players, and it wasn't their fault, but the new players that were coming in were living up to the name that we'd built, but then not living with the standards that we sort of owned. That was a little hard to sort of deal with when people, you know, just didn't play with the same sort of high standards. And also when you're training, you've gone from training every single day to then training 2 nights a week. It's hard to get your head around it.
It's really interesting. I didn't know. It's really, really interesting to hear, because I didn't know that full, I guess, story as to, you hear bits from the outside, don't you, as to the perception that it had. But
I think a lot of people, because we want to talk, and it's not me being bad, but we want to talk so highly of women's football now, and we have moved on so far, we actually forget that was a really important moment, and we sort of dismiss it. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that, I think. And also what the Fulham women's team did that time, we proved that you can take a group of women and make them professional, and they can. I mean, a lot of people said, oh, we win because we're professional, because we're getting gifted everything. Well, actually, we worked so hard. The training that we did, I mean, the first season we were training at Motspur Park, the men's training ground. We were in there so much more times than the men. You know, we're doing double sessions, and they, you know, which is different, because we hadn't had the build up for our bodies to learn how to be professional in training, and so we needed to learn that. We needed to get that sort of fitness within our bodies. It's like teams coming now from the championship that are training part-time and then getting promoted to the WSL and then training full-time. It's so hard because your body is not used to that. So at some point you're going to get injured, you're going to break down. So you need to really have time to get your body used to training full-time. So I think there was a lot of positives to take out of that, but a lot of things that you have to look back at the people that gave up and said, I can't do football anymore, because they just felt that it can't get any bigger than what we've got. And if you're just going to, take it away and crash it there, then kind of what's the point?
So where did you go to from Fulham?
Again, everybody, and I know people, a journalist, Tony Layton, had spoke to him years after. He sort of said, I had the story wrote already that I was going back to Arsenal, and I sort of flipped it on everyone and went and joined Birmingham. So I don't think anyone was expecting that. And like I said, I was just in a place that I wasn't enjoying football. I couldn't see that football would ever get to the place that it is now. I could have quite easily gone back to Arsenal and been happy, but I suppose I wanted something different. I spoke with the manager at Birmingham City, Marcus Bignall, and he asked me, would I come down there and play for them? And at first, I'm not going to lie, I did think that he was joking, and thought, why would I want to play for Birmingham? They were a team that fought for the relegation and to stay up and to try and do that, where I was used to playing for Arsenal and Fulham that were fighting on the other end. But you know what? I just thought this actually might be a good challenge for me, and might actually bring back a little bit of love for football again. So I have no regrets on joining Birmingham City. I've met so many great people. I think as a club, it was such a good family club. It was such a good, it had such a good sort of atmosphere around it. Marcus as a coach, I think, was brilliant. A footballer that was talking to you as a footballer and sort of just giving you those little tips there. And, I really enjoyed it. But obviously Birmingham in their second season, I had signed for them and I was going to stay there, but they had money troubles, and I don't think they were that closely linked with the men's club. And basically they made the deal, probably knowing that I wouldn't go anywhere else. They made the deal with Arsenal that I went back to Arsenal. So, a lot of people don't really know what went on there. And I know a lot of people said a lot of different things, but that they made the deal with Arsenal, so I went back and joined Arsenal.
And you obviously had an incredible career with Arsenal. So are there any, as you look back now, what's a real standout moment for you from that time with them?
Gosh, I think 2007, the quadruple, you don't win that. I think it was an unbelievable season, and I don't think that we got enough credit for it. I think as well, I don't think we gave ourselves as players enough credit for what we actually did. When I look back, we had, I think it was, because the UEFA Cup final, which is now the Champions League, was a two-legged final. So we had the first leg away in Umeå in Sweden, who had Marta, the world's best player. I mean, everybody wrote us off. It was basically, they just spoke about Umeå and what's that other team called? It was, I don't want to say you want to laugh at it, but it was just like, no one gave us any credit for actually getting that far and being in that final. At that point, we obviously got to that final, and Kelly had got sent off in the semi-final, so was missing it. Faye was injured, so was never going to start, was never in a position that she could play 90 minutes. So then people, I suppose, in our own country were writing us off because we're missing our players, arguably our best players. And I think that gave a little bit more of a drive, an anger to the players that were playing, that, hold on a minute, we can, we can be as good, we can put some effort in, and we can do us proud. Also, Jane Ludlow was the captain. Jane Ludlow, obviously Welsh and very fiery. Her pre-game talk was just so powerful. She spoke about, again, like I say, with her being Welsh, she'd say, you English, you're so fortunate. You will get to go to a World Cup and to a Euro, and you'll get to play on the big stage, but I won't. This is my biggest stage. This is what it means to me. And really gave so much emotion in the way that she was speaking and said how much of a disrespect they showed us, in terms of they didn't even acknowledge that they, her and obviously Vic were at the press conference, didn't even acknowledge Arsenal, just spoke about Marta and what they were going to do when they won this tie and what it would be like to go back to London and win there. And she was just like, wow, it was like we had to calm her down a bit. So, it was fantastic to hear the passion. And then you think, do you know what? Yes, I want to win because we wanted to win anyway. We knew it was always going to be hard, but now I want to win even more for you. I know that I felt like that. I know other people have sort of spoke. I've got photos from before the game. There was a car parked in the middle of the pitch. Obviously some sponsorship. We were sitting in the car having photos. That's how chilled out we were before. It's a final of a European final. We were just chilled out. We were relaxed, and we had nothing to lose because no one gave us a chance. So really, whatever we did was a bonus. I remember myself and Emma Byrne telling Alex Scott, the car's there because first goal scorer wins the car. Just sort of a flippant remark, and left it at that. Then obviously we held on for periods of the game. They were really good, and we played out of our skins and played a different style of football to what was normal to Arsenal. We didn't have all the possession, and then just towards the end, Alex takes a shot and it goes in the back of the net. We were all celebrating, and then after the game, me and Emma looked at each other because Alex was saying, "How am I going to get the car home?" And we were like, "Oh gosh, let's get out of here quick." I don't want to tell her it was a joke. So yeah, so it was a fantastic day. But obviously, then it quickly kicked in that we've got it all to do again, because we have to go home and play them. In a week or 2 weeks' time, whatever it was. Then was a more serious and pressurized game because we had something to lose. That we held on for dear life. And Emma Byrne made one of the best saves I've ever seen, hitting it. And we knew Lady Luck was on our side because she saved it, hit the post, it came back, hit her head, and then she caught it before it went in. And at that point, I think most of us were like, it's our day, we're going to win the cup. Thankfully we did.
Can I move back on then to a bit more about your England career and your England pathway? Despite being you're one of the first to receive a contract through the FA in 2009, but then I think there was a bit of a time when you weren't selected after this, when I think Hope Power said she thought you'd lost form. So what was happening for you personally at that time?
Yeah, to be honest, you're probably the only person that's ever asked me. I think there was 2009 was when I got dropped for England. I was on probably about 90 caps and got dropped for the Euros. And it was a weird one because the build up, I think within training sessions and weeks away with England, you can kind of, usually they don't tell you the team, but you can kind of guess what the team is. And each time we go away, I just felt that I wasn't part of it. I wasn't getting an opportunity in being in the team. But, I suppose that sometimes, you need to give other people an opportunity. And I know a lot of players said, oh, no, don't worry. It's just other people are getting an opportunity. You'll be fine and stuff like that. So personal life, I was struggling a bit with a few things. But football-wise, it's strange because although Hope said all those things, I don't personally believe it to be true because obviously we were going into a tournament. So our pre-season that time and all the training, I was training at a really high level, and I probably felt the fittest I'd ever felt. I think for me, and this is the way I'm looking at it, and I can't speak for Hope, but I think at a point where we were away at camp, I remember we were doing a bleep test, and I think, well, in a woman's body, it was my time of the month, and you know how you feel. And sometimes your legs, everything doesn't want to work. You don't want to get out of bed. And I was just like, and I felt low as well, personally, what was going on in my life. And I just was struggling a little bit. And I remember running the bleep test. Me personally, I ran the bleep test to how I believe it should be run, is that when the beeps go, you stop and then you start again. A lot of people, I won't name names, but they carried on running. When you carry on running, you've got the momentum. So I believe I ran it right. And I know other people said to me afterwards, you ran it right. But I didn't get a great score. So I didn't do well at that. And I remember looking and thinking, she's not going to pick me. Although, it was a shock and I was disappointed, I kind of wasn't shocked because I just thought, you can have that sort of feeling within you. But I think that I was playing when I was given the opportunity. Obviously, when the season started with Arsenal, at the end of that season, I ended up being voted player of the season. So it's not something you can just switch on and off. So it wasn't a surprise to me that I had a fantastic season because I knew how hard I worked, and I knew how fit I felt just mentally. I didn't feel strong. And, that's another point that when I think that in team environments, managers, coaches, team members can all do better, and psychologists can all do better, because people had staff members talk to me and sort of say, oh, you don't look yourself, but no one actually helped me.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm not a sort of person that is going to go and, shout out everything. I'll just deal with it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's wrong for me, but, I remember, and that's why I will always respect Kaz Carney and know that she was always going to be a really, really good psychologist, because out of all those players and all those people, she knew that there was a real problem with me and she didn't give up. I couldn't speak to somebody that was, now I don't even know how young she is compared to me, but I knew that I was, her idol growing up, and it's not for me to go and pour out my problems to a kid. So that was something that I chose not to do. But I always knew that she had my back, and she was there, and she could see that there was something else going on, which other people that, to be honest, it was probably their job to. They didn't see that. So
it's really interesting.
I suppose being more of one of the recognisable players, it was difficult because I remember when the team had been picked and obviously Hope's comments about me had come out in the press. I remember walking to the dentist and there were some workmen. They said, oh, I know you. You're that girl that you got dropped from England. And I can't imagine that this happens to loads and loads of people, because I was, quite recognisable. at that time, obviously women's football wasn't as big as it is now. So I think this will happen more often. But I remember him saying, what is it? What did you, like, the coach didn't pick you. What is it you went and did? You go out drinking? Did you get caught doing it? And I was like, no, I did absolutely nothing. And that, to me, was probably the hardest thing, because words that were said about me led to perception of the outside world. And I suppose that's an everyday occurrence for the men's football players, but it isn't, and it wasn't for women. So to feel that and understand what the guys go through, there's no wonder that, there's so many footballers that probably do struggle when they leave, and when things are said about them. And obviously with social media now and stuff like that, it's so difficult when you're thinking, I've got to tell this guy, you're totally wrong. I've done I wasn't out drinking. I wish I was out drinking and partying. All I was doing was training. But, at the end of the day, when I spoke to Hope, I said, I was disappointed at the words that she said about me. I was disappointed that I wasn't picked, but her job as manager was to pick a team that she thought could win. I wasn't involved. I wish her the best of luck. I wish the team the best of luck. And, I was gutted, when they lost, but also, and I know this sounds selfish, but I was happy because, I've been there for that long that I thought I don't want them to win when I'm not there. And I know that sounds really, really bad, because it's hard. You want people to do well, but then you're not involved. You kind of don't want that as well. So.
And how did you stay motivated during that time? Because obviously you then got back in the team and you hit amazing records for the number of caps. So how did you motivate yourself?
I think a lot of people sort of said, it gave me the kick up the backside that I needed. It didn't at all. I think the best thing for me was the Arsenal manager at that time was Tony Gervais. He'd seen me in pre-season. He was like, I just can't. He was like, I don't understand it. He was like, but I'm Scottish and I don't care what England do. and that's why I say it was probably the best thing for me, because he took all the emotion out. He said, I credit you as a person, because obviously Arsenal had quite a lot of internationals, England internationals play. And he said, I'd had conversations, and other players had said that, I think it was the first day that we got the phone calls telling us that we were no longer going to be in the squad, or we were going to be in the squad, was the first day of pre-season at Arsenal. So he said, I had other players tell me, I won't be coming. If I'm not picked, I need time. I won't come to training. He said, well, I never had that conversation with you, but you turned up, you trained, you don't look any different. You just, you've done your job. And he was like, I credit you as a person for that. Like he obviously heard things that were said about me. He's like, I can't understand, but I see nothing wrong with your fitness. And I think it was exactly what I needed to hear, because when you're at a point that people were telling you, you haven't given the right application, you haven't trained or worked hard enough, you kind of need someone to tell you, you're questioning yourself. I'm thinking, oh my God, I felt, like I said, mentally I felt not good, but physically I felt like I was in quite a good place. So for him to sort of reassure me, and he told me, go away, have 2 weeks off, isolate, do whatever you got to do, don't come train. And I was like, oh, but I need to train, I'm not. And he was like, you are fit enough, you are fine. So go away, do nothing. I don't want you to do anything. And then he goes, just make me one promise. You'll come to pre-season training in Germany. We had a pre-season tournament. He goes, you'll come to that and you'll play and you'll do well. And I did. So I went away. I went and visited my friend in America who I hadn't seen for a while. And then I came straight back to Germany without doing anything, and played and felt. And he was like, you're fine. He was like, there's no problem. I'm not worried. So I think for me, he gave me the backing that I needed, but he also gave me the responsibility of go away and be you, because I trust that you're gonna you're healthy, you're a good person, you do the things in the right way, and come back and play for me. You do something for me, I do something for you. It was kind of, I think he got the kind of, I suppose, loyal side. I wouldn't let him down in that part, that he'd shown me that responsibility.
And you went on to become England's most capped player.
Yeah.
Thinking back to that day, can you remember how that felt at the time for you? And obviously you mentioned Peter Shilton, and you're the old fantastic guy that got you started there as well.
I think for me, like I said, the 100th cap was big for me emotionally because of what happened getting dropped and the things that people don't see. I know I didn't probably react in the way that Hope Powell wanted me, in terms of she gave me the captaincy, I led out the team, and before the game she spoke about me and stuff like that. And I said, I don't take praise too well, and I was a little bit embarrassed, when people were talking you up. And also in my head, I haven't made 100 cap. I haven't played anything. Once at Fulham, there was a young kid that was going to start in a Champions League game and was buzzing about it. Came off the coach just before we got to the ground, tripped on the last step and twisted her ankle, was out of the game. So I'll always remember that. So for me, I hadn't made 100 caps because you don't know what's going to happen. I know that sounds really bad, but that's the way that I kind of thought. So for me, I don't think I reacted with all like, yay, that everyone wanted me to. I was just focused on, let's just play the game, let's just get it done. And I was the same on, beating Peter Shilton's record. I was the same there, that I was just, let's play the game, let's get it done, let's get a win, and then we celebrate afterwards. And I always said when I finish playing, it will always mean more to me, breaking records and winning trophies. So I was getting personal awards, because when you're playing, you're there to play to win, move on. And especially the culture at Arsenal. If I look at 2007, we had so many. We won the quadruple. Every game was like a cup final, and the more we won, the more people wanted to beat us. And we won the FA Cup final. We didn't celebrate because we concentrated on the next leg of the UEFA Cup or whichever way around it was. But that's the mindset, and I suppose that was kind of built in me, so that I didn't react how people thought I should.
And coaching's obviously been such a huge part of your career. As you say, you kind of started so young. What is it that you love? What do you enjoy about being a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I learned how to coach when I was 16, going into primary schools, and I love working with the youth. I set up my own coaching company after I left Fulham. I think just working with kids and working with, now obviously I enjoy working with more elite players, but back then, to see a kid that can't kick a ball or has no confidence, to inspire them for an hour to be Lionel Messi or to be the best player in the world, whoever they want to be, to give them that confidence, that enjoyment, that place where they can go and express themselves and make mistakes, and it doesn't really matter, and go and have fun. And I think there's loads of kids that I've coached over the years. Some have gone on to play at a really high level, but they've all it was just about giving them that enjoyment. And football you can learn so many different life skills out of football. And I think I always get told by some of the schools that I worked at were difficult schools, and teachers would say, this kid is going to be difficult, won't listen. And then they come back and say, oh, how were they? Were they okay? Did they listen? How many times did they get in trouble? I said, absolutely angel, because I was teaching them football, something that they wanted to learn. And also I'd show them. I was a way for them to see not only the girls, but the boys as well. Girls can play football. It's okay to have someone that looks different playing football. We're all playing on the same level. It's okay to express yourself. It's okay to get something wrong, to not be good at it, and then to practice and be better. So yeah, I've taken so much enjoyment out of coaching. I obviously started off and ran a grassroots football team, which is incredibly difficult. And I think anybody that does that is an absolute saint, because it's so hard. And there's many stories that we could tell you, but it made me play better on a Sunday, because I didn't want to walk into the school on a Monday and all the kids tell me I was rubbish.
And you've got a children's book out in January, How to Be a Footballer. I've pre-ordered my.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So how different is it, that coaching of like primary school age children, and then obviously you've done the very elite end as well in terms of the WSL. Does it feel really different in the coaching?
Well, I coached London Bees in the Championship last season. I obviously wanted to finish off my A licence and work with more elite players. And I suppose, yeah, it's different, because there you're trying to, you're working on 11 aside. You're trying to make sure that you're giving information to to everybody within the team, at the same time as your roles. So, for instance, a right back bombing on where the right winger moves, it will impact what the right back does, where the centre backs move. So you're trying to explain to everybody that as a team we all have an impact in what individuals do, and the space and stuff like that. So, but also, I mean, similar things to working with kids is giving them confidence. I think the biggest thing in football, and I've learned that through my own career, is if you can give someone confidence, pretty much the same as Tony gave to me at Arsenal, Tony Durace. He gave me confidence and belief. Then I can produce and I can perform because I know that the trust is there. So I think a lot of those skills, working with elite players, there's fine details that you're trying to educate and tap into, but the majority is that you're making them believe that and giving them the confidence that they can play and express themselves and go on to do great things.
And we're still seeing so few women at their very top level at high performance coaching. Do you think that's getting any better than it has been in the past?
I think there's more that we can see. I think probably because companies, clubs, boards, whatever, people, I suppose, have a duty to it's being highlighted that we need more diversity. So that's being put on show. So that will inspire. I think a barrier is that if we look at coaching badges, they're expensive to get. And if you're going to pay a whole heap of money to get your coaching badge with no prospect of getting a job at the end of it, it doesn't seem like a sensible thing to do.
No, I had no idea how much the UEFA A licence was as well when I researched this. I was going to say exactly that. You wouldn't do it if you didn't know there was a pathway and a role for you afterwards. Why would you invest?
Exactly, unless there's funding schemes. Obviously, my A licence was on a funding scheme through the FA and PFA for elite female players. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have done my A licence. No way, because it just costs too much to like I say, there's not enough jobs out there, and also it's so difficult to get a job and to get experience because I suppose the threat, people, do you want to let somebody in? And that's why I was so appreciative to Luke, who was at London Bees, because there was plenty of clubs that was like, oh, can I come and just finish off my A licence? But not many people were willing to sort of have me in there, because I suppose there's a threat that, once I finish the A licence that I might take their job.
And we're beginning to see some more female players now in the NBA and the NFL and also in the WSL too. But do you think there'll be a time when we see more women in the men's pyramid of football?
I don't really see why not. I mean, for me, I always relate it back to kind of being a teacher. I mean, you do the same awards and the same badges. So why? Because I get it. If I'm playing, if I'm a player, there's physical differences between a women's body and a man's body. I agree that women and men should not play in the same pitch unless it's for fun, because there is those differences. So you need a women's league, you need a men's league. But if I'm a coach, then it's all about, one, how I treat people and how I can put my message across, how I can coach and educate people. That has nothing to do with anything physical. So whether you're a man or a woman, I don't think it really matters. I mean, there's no A licence for women and A licence for men. It's the same thing, or a pro licence. And it's the same thing in teaching. We wouldn't go into, a parent dropping your child off and go, oh, I'm not having that woman teach my child, would you? I mean, so I think it's the same. We've got to look at it in football. The coach, if they've got the qualifications and they've got the personal skills and people skills to develop people, then they would be good enough. I think the biggest barrier will be the media and will be the outside influences that have a big action on our perception of what is right and what is wrong. That would be the hardest thing. I mean, you see managers now that get crucified for having a loss, or I mean, Gareth Southgate at the moment, people are sort of calling for his head for for playing against Denmark and losing. Imagine if Gareth Southgate was a woman. Imagine if he was black. I mean, these are the problems that I just think that it's totally wrong. We shouldn't judge people on color of the skin, on gender. It should be about, what they're bringing, what the style. If I just don't understand it.
And you mentioned kind of race and racism there. You experienced within your career a little bit. I know you talked about an incident in Spain, but was that something sort of prolific throughout your career, or when you look back?
No, I wouldn't say prolific. I think, like I said, in the Champions League, definitely there was the incident in Spain where, I just couldn't understand it, to be honest. I mean, one fan. It was quite a big stadium. I don't know how much Real Vallecano holds, but I'd say there was at least sort of 15,000 there. There was one person, sort of making monkey noises, shouting at me, and every time I got the football, and I think I was just more astonished, to be honest, because I've read about it, I've heard about it, I've heard people talk about it, but I couldn't relate to that. Although you think you can, you can't ever really relate to it until it actually happens. And then I know it's happened previously when we've played Champions League. I'm trying to think what countries it was, but
more overseas than at home at all.
Overseas, people have thrown. I remember one time Danielle Carter was warming up, and people were throwing coins at her. Just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, that's like just so dangerous anyway. But people spitting. It's just, it's just you can't believe what some people do. I mean, in this country, I think I've had comments. from players which you will put down as banter, but then actually it does come down to sort of racial biasness. When I was coaching in the schools, so if I was doing a soccer school or something like that, I didn't want to put my phone number on a leaflet, so I got another phone. So sometimes I used to carry around two phones, and then I got a new car, and someone said to me, "Oh, what, you're a drug dealer now?" And that's one of my teammates, and you could take that and you can laugh it off, but you think, well,
she wouldn't have said that to another player.
Yes, yeah, but it's a hard one to kind of call up and say, "Oh, you wouldn't say that to another player." And then obviously people sort of, why are you getting on the defensive? So I think the look said it all. My unimpressed look, and we left it there because there's just no need for that. No need for it at all.
And are you hopeful after all that's happened this summer, and so much I feel has changed and shifted in people's attitudes, that we might be beginning to see a beginning of the end for some of that racism within football?
I'm hopeful, but I still think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot of unconscious or conscious, however you want to look at it, ignorance within us all that needs to be broken down and needs to be. I think those are the things that will really have a barrier and will really stop it from going so far. Some of the things that we don't want to open up and have conversations, really simple things that we don't. I'm trying to think of something now, but that we don't want to open up and have an awkward conversation where we possibly need to. I think we'll stop there will be hopefully an end to the outright, where I said before, that one fan making monkey charts, throwing something, coins being thrown. Hopefully we'll get to a place where, well, that will stop, or there'll be procedures in place that if that does happen, there will be a procedure to it, that it doesn't look at, so if it happened to me, that I'm the bad person within it, because I think that's sometimes what it turns out to be. And there's heavy procedures in place that we actually come down hard on people because we take it seriously. But I think there still needs to be, and I think this is for all of us, when we hear someone say something like the comment that I just said, then, I mean, it wasn't just me and my mate that were there. There were other people, but no one said anything. It was only me that looked and was like, just gave an angry look and sort of thought, "Do you know what, I'm not even going to get started here. I'm just going to walk off. I'm just going to leave it." Was that the right thing to do? I don't know. possibly not.
But how powerful if one of your peers had stepped forward and said that's out of order or called it out.
But that's what we need to do, because
Yeah.
if we're going to change something, then we need not just the person it's the victim or the person it's happened to, or another black person. We actually need everybody that actually finds that wrong to say, do you know what, that's wrong? Or then the person goes, why is it wrong? And then you have a conversation, you debate, you find out, oh, I didn't really understand it. Then you can argue the points over it, and the malice over it. I don't believe that there was any malice in what was said to me. I just believe that it was a stupid thing to say and quite ignorant. But nobody stood up, and that's where I think we all need to stand up. If we're going to overcome racism, we all need to stand up. Also, what we educate and teach. I was speaking to a friend of mine that works in school and said, well, we're talking now about everything about, Black History Month and education. And one, it's great, Black History Month, but it's not great. We shouldn't have a month just dedicated to Black people. It should just be an overall. This is, we celebrate people for what they are, but why do we not teach the slave trade in school? Because if we want to overcome and understand and educate what's happened to Black people, then we need to teach it. Because I'm thinking, we did the mummies and we did the Romans. Like, I don't know how much that's taken me in life, but if we really want to educate people, then.
And I think that is changing. There are I've signed some petitions. I think there's definitely calls for changing the curriculum, and there are some schools that are beginning. I've seen some stuff with schools beginning to change out. But you're right. That needs to be right from the very ground of society, doesn't it?
We can't. It's bad because on one hand you can't blame people, because if people don't know and they ain't educated, then you need to educate them.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of sit on it.
Excellent. So you got an MBE, an OBE. You were inducted into the National Football Museum, and you got a portrait in the National Portrait Gallery. So what do those honours mean to you and your family as well?
I think, well, first off, the MBE was just a total surprise. Because the story around that goes that it was sent. So at the time that it was sent out, I was obviously playing for Birmingham, but then made the switch to Arsenal. So the letter was sent to Birmingham. Someone at Birmingham had opened the letter and read it and put it in an envelope and sent it down to Arsenal. So then when at Arsenal, we used to play pranks on each other. So then when it came to me in kind of like the mail at Arsenal, the fan mail, whatever, that came in, I opened it. So it wasn't in an official envelope. And I thought, good gag. I'm not believing this. So I gave it to my mate to read, and I was like, is this you? Is this you? And we read a little further, and it says, don't tell anyone. And I was like, oops. And myself and Rachel MacArthur, we kept that a very good secret when we realised it was actually. She was like, no, Yank. She was like, no, you've actually been given an award here. You have to take this serious. I was like, I thought you was winding me up. So that was nice. Then, obviously, it's not something that you, like I said before, you play football to win. If you get to cup finals, you play to win the trophy, and definitely not something you set out to do to get an MBE. And then to get an OBE, I think, is probably more special to me, because that was not only for playing, it was for coaching kids. And that meant a lot to me. And, I thoroughly enjoyed working in schools, working with the grassroots team, working with a lot of kids that enjoyed sessions and that I put on. So that probably meant more. But I think my mum's just like, whatever. No, definitely proud, but it's just a strange one, isn't it?
It is. And finally, are you obviously dubbed a legend, not just in Arsenal's ranks, but within the game itself? So you've clearly got a lot still to give to the game in terms of coaching or wherever else you might be doing. But what would you like your legacy in football to be when you look back? Where would you like to feel you've had the biggest impact?
I don't know. I always like to play in the way that I felt football should be played, an exciting style of football. We play because we want to have fun end of the day. And then when you play in front of a crowd, for me, I wanted to excite that crowd, and I wanted to the opposition to boo me and my fans to cheer. Yeah, if people thought that, I was an exciting player, a fun player to watch, I'd be happy with that. But at the end of the day, people remember you as what they want to remember you.
I love talking to Rachel, and I'm incredibly grateful to her for so openly sharing some of the challenges she's faced during her extraordinary career. Thanks again to Barclays for their support of the Game Changers, and also to Sam Walker, who is our wonderful executive producer. You can find out more about all 49 of the Game Changers at fearlesswomen.co.uk. Previous guests from football have included Steph Horton, Emma Hayes, Kelly Smith and Eni Aluko, so please do have a listen. If you have a moment to give the podcast a rating, it does make a big difference. And if you're enjoying the series, then please do tell your friends and family and colleagues and everyone. Please tell everyone about the Game Changers. You can get in touch with us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram at Sue Anstis or at The Game Changers. My guest next week is Gail Newsham, author of In a League of Their Own and the absolute expert on the remarkable story of the Dick Kerr ladies. It's a fascinating insight into the history of women's football, so subscribe now and you won't miss it.
I only ever wanted to play football, but of course we had no role models. But, I was so dedicated. Honestly, I absolutely lived, breathed, ate football.
The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.